Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells Podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 248. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and my co-host Michelle Falzon is here with me. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hiya, Suzi. I am well. Thank you so much. As we record this, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous day here in my studio, which always just helps to elevate my mood. Blue skies, sunshine, 25 degrees. That's in Celsius for our Fahrenheit people. And we're going to be talking more about planning today.
Sunshine and planning both lift my mood, actually. Now, in the last show, we talked about how to plan your next launch. And during that episode, we mentioned how we have created a structure inside our mastermind and inside our businesses where we do our plan for the next year in this year. And specifically, we do our plan for the upcoming year in the November of the year before. And in this episode, as this goes to air, we're right at the start of November. So we thought it would be great to give you a gentle nudge and to bring you into our world of how we plan next year now, right? And really take the opportunity that's available to you right now. So if you weren't already intending to do this, to get your annual plan done for next month, you're in the right place. And here's why. You don't want to be planning the year in January, right? You're already behind. And if you're one of our Australian, New Zealand listeners, then you know that January, it's summer, the kids are off school, suddenly it's February and you feel like you're on the back foot. But when you can start deep dive planning in November and see your whole year come into focus, the big strategic pieces that will help you achieve your goals for the year, then you arrive into January proud of yourself and set up for success. Now, this planning has definitely been one of my secrets to success over the years. And we're seeing how much of a difference this one easy shift can make, simply bringing your annual planning forward by a couple of months. We've seen that in my business. We've seen that in Michelle's business. We see it inside of our mastermind. It's like a secret sauce that kind of sounds obvious, but so few people take advantage of it. So this is your invitation to get on board.
Yeah, come on with us. Get on the bus with us. We are so convinced that planning your next year now, as in right now in November, is an advantage. For several years now, we've been running a bonus planning day as part of our November meeting for our masterminders. And we can see them get so many incredible benefits from this extra day, this deliberate structure that we create for them that kind of, in the best possible way, forces them to, even though they're busy, put their busy life to the side and do a little bit of forward planning, get ahead of the year. And we've watched their confidence increase. We've watched them get ahead of challenges. We've watched them find opportunities. And this is like one of my favorite things. They might not have seen from this beautiful vantage point here in November when they've got the time and the dedicated brain space. They might not have seen that if they were scrambling in the new year to get their flight plan figured out after they'd already taken off. And so many other really incredible benefits to our masterminders, to me, to Suzi, to anybody we know who does this process. And Suzi, you know what one of my most favorite things about planning next year in this year is?
I'm not sure if I do. What is it?
Well, you get to percolate on things.
Got it.
You create some mental space for your plans to marinate, if you like. And this is a vital part of the creation process. It's something I share in my Create Without Burnout model. And if you want to know more about that, we've got an episode on that. There's a podcast for that. And it's way back in episode 15, how to create content.
Wow.
I know, right? I could
1-5, double digits?
Oh my gosh. It was one of the early ones.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, right. And while that episode focused on like how to create content, it was applying the model to content. I give you a deep dive into the framework, and we go into the framework that applies really to creating anything in your life. And that episode has a bonus download where you can see the framework as well. So you definitely want to check that out if you're interested in really upping your awareness of how to really optimally create anything. But percolate is one of the vital parts of this creation process. And you know what it's like? You spend some time planning the year. And then, you might do your 1 day of planning. We see this with our masterminders, and you get a lot done. But then, it's a couple of days later, you're driving along and you get this brainwave. Hey, wait a minute. What if I move that launch earlier in the year? I could time it with International Women's Day. Or, oh, gee, I forgot about that election that's happening around that time. You hear something on the radio and you go, oh my gosh, I should have factored that in. I need to move that promotion a bit later, or whatever it is. It's really natural as you're moving the pieces around the chessboard for that to happen. And this deep dive planning in early November kind of loads everything into RAM. And then that's when the percolation happens, these abstract, creative, inspirational ideas come into play when you've already done the hard work of doing, most of the thinking. But if you've given yourself no leeway when it comes to the plan, that is, you've just got back from the Christmas break, or like you said, Suzi, it's school holidays and you don't get back till February, and you're putting your plan together late January, early February, while you're also trying to just figure out which way is up and get back into the work mode after the holidays, you've got no time for that deeper order thinking and percolating. The plan's already underway. The year's already underway. And so you, like you said before, kind of on the back foot. And this is where it's really possible to have quite a significant strategic error in your thinking, or where you're not capitalizing on a big opportunity that you might have been able to see if you'd just given yourself a little bit more thinking time. I know that feeling when I think, I wish I'd given myself more time. I know I'm not taking the most advantage of this situation. In contrast to having that plan in your brain as you go into your break time, so you can really own it and have it soak deep into your being, percolate, tweak it. Even if all that is happening on the mental back burner, like you're on the beach, you're not thinking about it, trust me, it's percolating. Your brain, your subconscious brain, working on it. And you're much more likely to arrive back in the new year ready for momentum. They're just two totally different ways of being. Arrive in the year fully percolated, ready to go from day one, or arrive discombobulated, no time for percolation, having to sort of build the plane as you fly it. So I'm a big fan of this deep dive planning process as early as you can in November, and then tweaking and percolating and refining throughout the November period, with the goal of maybe having a Christmas break, knowing you've got an amazing year ahead.
And I know for me that percolation period is sometimes, when I haven't done it, I just feel like I'm rushing from one thing to the next. But having that period, especially around the holidays where we often do get a little more downtime, that allows things to come to the surface. It allows higher thoughts to come in that just they can't squeeze in when we've got so much going on. And I was telling you, Michelle, that PJ and I have got this new little mantra that we whisper to each other when we find ourselves on the back foot. It's no rushing. Let's make sure that we're creating a life and a business where we don't feel like we're rushing. And so what we're talking about here today is let's not have a next year that is you rushing from one campaign to the other, from one sales appointment to the other, from one idea to the other. Just really giving yourself the opportunity to plan early. Just in talking about this, I can feel my nervous system just calming. Just knowing that I've already started this work. As we're recording, it's actually September, but I've started this work, early, some of it, sowing the seeds of what that's going to look like. And if you've got a business that doesn't take a break around the holidays, maybe you're an event organizer, you own a restaurant or a design agency, and your clients might be busy around Christmas holidays or New Year, whatever that is. That's even more reason to plan early so that you're not even further behind in the new year. Now, one of the biggest advantages of planning in November is that most of the current year is already behind you, which means you've got almost 11 months of data, of experience, of insights. You know what worked, you know what didn't, where you hit or you missed your goals. Now, this gives you the clarity of hindsight. It puts you in a really great place where you can look back at your successes and challenges and use that knowledge to make better, more informed decisions about the year ahead. And so I don't think it's ever too early to start sowing the seeds of the vision that we want for our business and our life. But even inside of, the Her Business community, whether it's inside the mastermind or the network, we use these 12-month periods as a capsule in which so much can be created. But we don't want to kind of open the doors to that when the time period is already here. We want to use our hindsight from the year before and use that end of year period to really take what we've learned and now start to project forward what it is that we want to create. And in that sort of November period, you're close enough to the new year to be able to create a plan that's going to be relevant. You know what the market's doing. You know what the big holidays are coming up, to speak to Michelle's earlier point. You've got a good sense of what's shifting in terms of your audience or trends or market conditions that are likely to continue into the year ahead. And at the same time, you still have plenty of time to prepare for the upcoming year. By doing your next year plan now, you're not scrambling at the last minute. You're giving yourself breathing room and time to think things through, to make adjustments and get everything in place. It is really the best of both worlds, learning from the year you've just had and giving yourself and your team a real head start for the year to come.
I'm just feeling completely excited and relaxed about my new year. just knowing that that's what's going to happen. Love it. Another advantage of planning early is likely going to give you a competitive edge. So while many businesses, like I'm amazed how many businesses wait until January or even February to start thinking about their year, you've already got your plans underway. Early planning also gives you a huge advantage when it comes to like allocating resources and planning ahead for those resources. So let's say you look at the plan here in November for next year and you go, oh, wow, I am going to need to hire someone to help me with that. Maybe you're going to do your first launch. And we've just been talking about that in our last episode, which was when you launch, you don't want to be doing that on your own. Even if you're a one-person band, you want to hire somebody to help you with that. Or you might need some additional resources for a big campaign in March that you're running. By planning early, you've got time to make those moves. You might need a new piece of technology. You might need some custom software built. You might have decided you're going to have a quiz in the mix and you need time to get that done or somebody to help you with that. So by planning early, you're making the right moves at the right time because the people you want to help you, they might be booked out. So you're getting in the front of the queue. You're not scrambling to find talent or juggle your budget at the last minute, paying through the nose because you didn't book that person in earlier. You're ahead of the game. You can also adjust your budget. Like you can secure the right resources. Maybe you think, oh, I didn't realize copywriting was going to be so expensive. Let me think if I need to do that, or how might I rejig things so that I can write that copy, or actually, no, I'm going to pay that copywriter to do it. I'm going to find the budget here, or I'm going to boost my goal a little bit. And you've got the time to kind of, as best as you can, get the right things in the right place.
There's another important benefit as we're talking here, and that is that you can, when you're looking ahead, that far ahead, you can really identify potential conflicts ahead of time. So when you're looking at next year from November this year, you can map out your key events, when your launches are going to be, when your different promotions are going to be, keeping in mind things that you can't necessarily influence but that are happening anyway, but like industry events and holidays, elections, right? But it's also an opportunity for your personal commitments to not have to be sidelined and to not have them impact your business plans because you've already thought about it ahead of time. And I found this, as I said, such a fun process to create the year as I want it to be. So I mentioned industry conferences. So say there's a major conference in your industry that's happening right when you want to launch something. If you're planning ahead, you can shift your timing or even align your marketing efforts to take advantage of that event. So they're not at cross purposes. Or like you said earlier, Michelle, an election that you want to avoid because your ad costs are going to be raised, people's attention is going to be somewhere else, or a special event that you don't want to avoid, you actually want to ride the coattails of. But you can only know that if you're giving the opportunity to yourself to plan ahead.
Really, I think we're doing a good job on this sales pitch, Suzi. I'm sold.
I want to see evidence.
And to build on what you're saying, when you've got some breathing room around your planning time, and you really can take that bird's eye view you're talking about of your business, of the external situations, you can make some really powerful distinctions that are almost only possible in that kind of a situation when you've given yourself that space, when you've been kind of super high level, you've zoomed up to that 30,000-foot view and you've been super strategic. You've created the time and space to really go there. And it's not easy to just get there, You need to gather the data, you need to give yourself the space, all of those things. And I can think of a perfect example of this. So Angela Council is one of our amazing masterminders. I have so much respect for Angela, not only the work she does helping women thrive in menopause, just the way she's approached her business and the rapid growth that we've seen in her as a CEO of her business, but actually the financial growth of her business as well and the success that she's achieving. Now, she did this planning process. She's a part of the mastermind. So she, every year we give her that opportunity to do the one day of planning in November. And she went to that high level, super strategic place where we can make a massive difference to our business just with our thoughts. And she realized she was doing too many launches. She took that bird's eye view you were talking about, Suzi, of the year, and she cut that back from 4 launches a year to 3. And guess what happened the following year? Made more money by far. And now she's actually cut that back to 2 launches a year. And so if she had not given herself that time and space to go to that level of thinking, to really have that clarity, that presence of mind to see the big picture, she very likely would have missed that distinction and that opportunity.
So she's making more money doing less. She, it's really easy for us to think, oh, look, I'll just cram a little more in my year. And that only happens because we haven't thought it through. But she had given herself the time and space, as you said, to not miss opportunities, but to really plan the year out. I mean, the fact that she had 4 launches, and if you've ever done a launch, there's a million moving parts and it takes time to plan and there's lots of resources. So she's taken back her time by only doing 2. She's increasing her results. And this is how your business gets easier and more profitable. These are the big needle movers. She could have worked much harder and pushed her team much harder and possibly even had people unsubscribe from her list because she kept promoting her course or, squeezing in an extra launch. But she did less and she made more. And if you've been listening to this show for a while or you're a part of the Her Business Network community, you'll know what an important idea this is to me. And so as this episode goes to air, we are at our annual growth retreat for Her Business members. We're spending 3 days together working on our 2025 growth plan, determining what we want to achieve, what marketing promotions do we need for our offers to be visible to our clients, how and where are we going to show up, and we're creating a plan together. And then we're going to be holding each other accountable after the retreat in smaller groups. Similarly, this month, November, our masterminders, as we mentioned, are going to be coming together for a whole facilitated day of working on their 2025 plans. We also, inside of Her Business, we publish these big planners that members use to map out their plans for both their personal life and their business. And it's always, and again, we do that process now. And it's always so great to see these planners then pinned to the walls throughout the rest of the year, the next year, knowing that they're keeping their eyes on the big picture and they're moving towards their goals because they've taken the time to make the plan, to percolate on the plan, to refine the plan, and then to surround themselves with people that hold them accountable to that plan. So early planning isn't just about being prepared. It's about gaining a real advantage. It really gives you the room to make smarter decisions, to allocate resources effectively, and to avoid last-minute chaos. And that is what we want for you. We want you to think about your business strategically. We want you to choose to do less next year, but be conscious about what you are saying yes to. What is it that you will do? And we can only do that if we give ourselves the headspace, the time and space to actually think about it strategically and say yes to the things that are really going to make a difference. Michelle, I know you've got some thoughts on this.
Oh, well, it's what you said before. Like, planning is actually designing.
Yeah.
Like yes, you're going to make a plan, you're going to have some financial goals, and you need to do some campaigns to meet those goals, and you've got all the moving parts. But that bigger picture view where you give yourself the space, it's also about, like you use the magic word, conscious, being conscious and present to what you really want. Don't go planning something you don't want. Look at that year and go, oh my gosh, what have I done? I don't want that to be my year. Because once we set things in motion, you know, and I hear this story all the time, and I've been there myself at times. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and, you know, the first year she ran her conference, she was the one packing the goodie bag at 3 o'clock in the morning on the day of the conference, and she had to be present for everybody all that day. She was absolutely wrecked. And it's at those moments at 3 a.m., you've got 150 goodie bags around you, and, you know, you're plonking pens and diaries and what else in, going, I hate private lives. Well, guess what? The plan kind of got you there. So, look, stuff happens. Things don't always go to plan. We know that there's going to be times when we have those moments. But it really is, I just want to underline in red what you just said about being conscious about what you say yes to. And that's, by kind of definition, also what you say no to, right? The things you might have been doing all along, you don't have to do them again next year. You don't. What do you want next year to look like? That's a really important question. And you are allowed to ask yourself that question and to answer that question, and then to plan for the way you've answered that question.
Because when we don't do that, what can happen, and I know I've done this, is you just do a rinse and repeat, but you're not just repeating the good things, you're just repeating everything. And so, so the key word there, as we said, is being conscious. And so that's why we're inviting you to do this now. Now, we have a more specific strategic planning process that we teach our masterminders and our Her Business Network members. And we've got a podcast episode that gives you a high-level overview of the process, because this is something that's quite in depth, and it takes workshopping, and it's something that we, do, as I said, inside of our programs. But that is episode number 78. It's called 3 Steps to Finally Getting Any Big Content Project Done. And while it talks about getting content projects done, it's actually our strategic planning framework, which is about how to get anything done, really. So we want to give you a quick summary as quick as we can, and then we're going to give you a link to that resource so that you can download it. So at the highest level, the process looks like this. You give yourself an allocated day or a good chunk of time to do your planning. Now, I'm not saying try and do this in an hour. Like, really take a day, take yourself away from your desk. Like, don't do it in your normal office is my recommendation. Like, hire a room somewhere, or just go to an Airbnb, or do it with a friend, whatever it is. Don't try and squeeze it in around everything else. It's not going to happen. You really want to firstly find that pocket of time where you can think about a year, because it's not something that you're going to rattle off in an hour or two. It needs some sort of deep thinking.
Yeah, big +1 to creating that extra space, allowing the time, and a great idea to get away. Like, whether it's just being in another room in your house, if you have a home office.
Right.
I love the idea of getting away for a few days, like you said, hiring a house by the beach, or, booking out a room in a share office space. They can be really affordable. And also, before you get there, doing some prep work, like gather some of the about the past results, like ask for the printout, ask for the stats on your sales results, ask for ask the person who's managing your Facebook ads to give you a summary of the year. Look at your audience segments, look at the campaigns that worked, and kind of gather the data that you're going to be able to pop under your arm, take into that planning day with you, and sort of have at your fingertips as you're thinking, I wonder, should we do that again? Was that even successful? And you'll find yourself asking questions, and you'll be able to dig into that data.
And if you have a business partner or a key team member, then think about how you might participate with them. Now, do you need some time for yourself? Is the entire process a collaboration? So I typically think about the year ahead, and my business partner, who's also my life partner, he thinks about what he wants his year to look like and what business might look like. And then we might get together and we'll put the big pieces in place before we go to the team. And so we still leave enough room so that the team can participate and share ideas and be part of that process. But we don't go with a blank page and go, what should we do in the new year? Like, we already have a sense of like, what is our budget? What are we trying to achieve? We've sort of analyzed the results of the last year. And so part of the process is a collaboration, but we go in with clarity, not with a big question mark. Then once you're getting into your planning, as Michelle said, you want to start with reviewing the year. What worked? What didn't? Did you hit or miss your goals? And hopefully you've been collecting that data along the way. So you're getting a picture of what we call your current reality. What happened? Now, you've got 11 months of data, right? Then you set your goals for the next year, and you want to align your big picture goals with your key strategic objectives. And you want to consider things like, what are my financial goals? What are the growth opportunities? What are my personal aspirations? We also suggest that you do something. This is something that we've termed inside of her business your big kahuna goal. So while you might have a vision for the year, your big kahuna is your 12-month goal. It's the thing that, if realized, would revolutionize your business. So one of the things we do when we work with both our masterminders and our Her Business Network members is we all set a big kahuna goal. And now the kahuna is the chief in the Hawaiian language. So this is the chief goal. Now, I know you're going to say, but I have 10. Great. But what is the number one thing? Michelle, I hadn't mentioned to you, but just the other day, I got the opportunity to meet the author of the book, The One Thing. And it's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. And he just reminded me again is that if you have multiple priorities and you don't have a priority, you need to figure out what is that big kahuna? What is the one thing that, if it would happen in the next year, would make a radical change to your business? So one of our masterminders, her big kahuna a couple of years ago was to get a new van on the road. Now, let me explain. Now, she has a business that does electrical, heating, and solar. And she has vans that go around and give estimates, and the people in them give estimates, and they deliver results for people in her area in regional Victoria. And she knew that getting one new van on the road meant she had to have a certain level of income, certain team members. There were a whole lot of things that underpinned that. But she could voice the big kahuna in one thing. My big kahuna is to get another van on the road, because each van that she has on the road is worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars in new business. So that could be a whole other episode. Okay. So knowing, sorry.
Making a note.
Making a note. So it's, good to have your longer term goals, but you also want to be clear on, the main thing that you want to get over the next 12 months. Then you look at, well, what are the strategic objectives that I need to achieve? And this is all outlined in the resource that we're going to give you a link to, what these different parts are. So you start with your vision, you've got your big kahuna, you then put in your big rocks, which are your strategic objectives. Like, what are the key things that need to happen in order for me to reach my higher up goals? And I don't want to go into too much detail because that's a whole other episode, but you want to sort of think from the big picture to the smaller picture. Because as we said earlier, one of the smaller pictures is going to be actually doing the step-by-step plan, like what needs to happen when and who's going to do it and how much is it going to cost. But we want to start with the big picture, percolate on that, and then move through to, the top goal, the big 3 to 5 strategic objectives. What are the key events and launches that are going to help me achieve those? Maybe their product launches, their campaigns, their promotions, their team upgrades, their marketing, new software you're going to put in place, whatever it is. Now, we just released an episode on how to plan out a launch. So check that out. We're going to put a link to that in our show notes. And then part of this process we're talking about is, once you've done that, you've set the vision, the big kahuna, the big rocks, what are the resources you're going to need? As Michelle mentioned earlier, like, do I need to hire a copywriter? Do I need to outsource some things? Where do I need additional support? And you want to leave some space and be flexible for unexpected things to happen. So you don't want to have a chock-a-block schedule and calendar and plan where there's no room for magic. That's why we propose a 90-day structure where you might have a year-long goal, but then every 90 days, you're zooming in on a specific project that's in line with your annual plan. You're recalibrating. right? That's the bit where you can now pivot to something that's going to get you a little closer. How did things go? Did they work out? Does something need to change? Maybe something you'd planned for the third quarter needs to come into the second quarter. Did something unexpected happen? So it's very conscious, purposeful planning. Purposeful planning. That's a good word.
And we actually built that purposeful planning, that 90-day structure into our mastermind. So every 2-day event in our mastermind year, and we do 4 of those, is approximately 90 days apart. So you get that big picture plan in November that has you knowing you're on track, giving you that strategic bird's eye view, really capitalizing on all the opportunities you can. And then you focus in on exactly what that means for the next 90 days. And we're just seeing amazing, amazing results with this, because something magical happens with this combination, Suzi. Like having that big picture view, it's really then hard to hold a year's worth of detail in our heads.
Right.
But it is possible to sort of see in the next 90 days, this is what I'm going to get done. And this is the vital part, the stepping stone to achieving my goal for the year. And we can, in a way, kind of like rest in the knowledge that the strategy is sound. We've done the big picture thinking, and now we can go into the detail. We can go into go mode, rolling up our sleeves, writing an email, or briefing the web designer, or, you know, vetting different software providers or whatever it might be, because all of those little day-to-day details are not just busy work anymore. They're actually moving the needle in the direction you actually want to go.
We have mentioned a bunch of links and resources, like other podcast episodes that are relevant if you want to go deeper on today's topic, and then get into action. The other thing I want to mention, just before I tell you where to get those show notes, is our mastermind program. We only open up a couple of times a year, typically in the middle of the year. And then if there's space available, or we're looking to grow a little bit, we'll open up at the beginning of the year. So we are now in November. If you know that your marketing is what's keeping you from getting those bigger goals that you might have been setting, whether they are impact goals or revenue goals or profit goals, and you want to join us inside of the mastermind, then go ahead and go to herbusinessmastermind.com, and either you'll be able to join the wait list and we can notify you when a space becomes available, or there'll be a space available and you'll be able to go ahead and apply and set up a time to speak with me and Michelle. And if one of your plans is to grow, and that is to grow your revenue, then we're achieving amazing results inside of the mastermind. And it's a tight-knit, small group of women who are really doubling down on marketing as their vehicle to growth. So I was just inspired to tell you about that. So if that triggers a thought for you, I've been listening to the show for a while. I know I really want to do this, but I haven't stepped out. This is a really good time of year to make that commitment to yourself and then be ready to be off and running in the new year with the program. So that's herbusinessmastermind.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Before I give you the show notes details, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our members, Elizabeth Bond of Zenbird Words. She is an SEO copywriter and a marketing consultant, and she works mostly with holistic health and wellness coaches. She was listening to a recent episode with one of our masterminders, Susan Bell. That episode is called The Power of Plain Language, and it is a ripper. It is really about how to use, like it says, plain language that your customers understand in your marketing. And that includes how to use that plain language on your website, but also in your email. She gives us some amazing tips. And she said, I love listening to this episode with Susan Bell. So many gems. As a copywriter, I understand the value of a checklist language framework. And I love that you reinforce that simplicity is the key to clarity. Size. And you've inspired me to put together a checklist, maybe a blog for my niche. Way to go getting into action, Elizabeth. So good. And I know that you've just recently done a rebrand working with another member in the network. So 2 things in that. Thank you, Elizabeth. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating or a review wherever you are listening. And shout out to Susan Bell for that great episode. Once again, we will put a link to The Power of Plain Language so that you can take a listen. And anything else we mentioned here on the show, we're going to put all of that over at herbusiness.com/planned next year now. All one word, herbusiness.com/plan next year now. Michelle, what do we have coming up in the next episode?
We're just on a roll with the planning thing. But we're turning our gaze now towards the social media calendar. And we're going to be sharing our top tips for planning your social media. Now, if you find social media is the bane of your existence, if you find that you've been meaning for 5 years to get yourself more organized on social media, if you're already doing some cool stuff on social media and you're looking for those 1 or 2 ideas that help you kind of take things to the next level, this is going to be a great episode for you because we're going to be sharing our top tips, the top tips we know that are working with our peers, with my clients that we're seeing in the mastermind, that Suzi's seeing in the network. It's going to be a juicy, juicy episode.
I'm really excited about that episode. 1, I love planning. 2, social media has many times been the bane of my existence. Here's the thing is that if it's been difficult for you or you feel like all I'm doing is putting content out there and, it's crickets, really pay attention. That episode is coming out in a couple of weeks. And so if you don't already subscribe, be sure to subscribe. But the thing is, if you can plan your social media calendar for the next year and then create a system for yourself that allows it to be easy, how good would that be? So check that episode out 2 weeks from now, right here on the Content Sells podcast. Michelle, before we go, is there anything you'd like to say?
I just want to tug on your sleeve. If you're listening right now, just imagine me standing there just pulling on your sleeve, like a little kid that says, hey, go ahead, book that day. It's November already. The month will scoot by. I know you're busy. We're all busy. Please just right now, if you can, just pick the date. Go ahead. It's November. Find a date in your calendar. Make the day. Get out of the office. Give yourself that time to create the year you really want next year.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.